Hey everybody, I am Stephanie Goss, and this is another episode of the Uncharted Podcast. This week on the podcast, Andy and I have a great letter from the mailbag. We have an email from Dr. Sweep Conflict Under the Rug and hope that it just goes away, and her just as frazzled practice manager. And we've got a practice that is in a cycle of nitpicky negativity with one another, and this hospital leader is hoping desperately that Andy and I might have some thoughts and some insight on how do we break this cycle when everybody is just at each other's throats. Let's get into this, shall we?
And now, the Uncharted Podcast.
And we are back. It's me, Dr. Andy Roark, and the one and only Stephanie. Try to see things my way, Goss.
That's very appropriate for today. I like it.
I thought so. I was like, oh, it's kind of an upbeat, try to see things my way. Yeah, I was like, okay, we can work it out.
Yeah.
We can work it out. It's like, yeah,
like
that's where we're going. It's going to be a bit of a, hopefully, a kumbaya episode.
I like it. How's it going, Andy Roark?
It is good. The year is like hitting its stride now, and we are rolling along.
It's busy.
The kids are good. Yeah, it is busy. So far, it's good busy. I have been pushing my time management strategies, and I think they're about maxed out. It's like, I've learned this with like both wellness and time management. I don't think a lot about where I am as far as how busy I am or as how stressed I am. But if I stop and I look at my day and I say, how many time management strategies am I employing? It's like, oh, Andy, you're using them all, buddy. You're like time blocking.
You're maxed out.
You're maxed out. Yeah, 100%. You're delegating to your children. Like you are doing all, I'm like, wow, I'm crushing it. Same thing with wellness stuff. If I'm like, Andy, are you stressed out? And I'm like, I don't know. Am I staying off of social media and meditating and doing yoga? Yep.
No.
I'm stressed out then. That's why. Those things only happen when I am dealing with stress, and time management techniques only really kick in when I have a lot on my plate. And so I am doing yoga and schedule blocking and all those things.
That's so funny. It's the opposite for me. Like I have this last year, I have really leaned into intentionally putting time blocked into my schedule for me. And so doing yoga every morning, and not so much with the meditation. ADHD brain, I struggle with that so hard, but journaling and staying off of social media. And when I am stressed, I know it because I'm not doing yoga. I haven't written in my journal and I'm scrolling, and I'm not scrolling on social media because I just don't have the bandwidth for it.
That is one of the things that I am proud of in myself, or that I like about how I've become wired later in my life is, I went the thing like everybody else does, where you're like, when I get stressed, the wheels fall off. Yeah. And I think at some deep level, at some point, I decided the wheels are not going to fall off anymore. I just decided. And the more stress that piles on, the more I will go running on the treadmill, before bed, because I'm like, this has got to happen.
You need to.
I mean, that's where 6 a.m. CrossFit came from, was just, I was like, I am not going to not do this. It's going to happen. And so, I sort of pushed through that. But again, like I said, everything's good, but it's like, oh man, I'm having this question that you and I have talked about a lot, as I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, when I look at the calendar, it really does look like in about 2 weeks, everything is going to calm down. And
it never does. It never does.
But sometimes it does. Sometimes it does.
This is adulting, though. Adulting, I have just leaned into the zen of acceptance when it comes to telling myself the story that after this crisis, everything is going to calm down and it's all going to be fine. And the reality is, adulting is just one crisis after another. Sometimes you get a break. Sometimes you get a little vacation. But then some other crisis takes place. And I have leaned into that. And I have been in a much better headspace as a result of leaning into. It's just going to happen.
There's definitely power in low expectations. There's definitely power in low expectations. But I do. So I know what you're saying, and I do hear that. And that's why I'm saying I don't want to be naive.
Right.
As I look at it. At the same time, I truly believe that there are phases in life, and sometimes you get your butt kicked for 3 months. It's important during that 3 months not to freak out and say, "This is my life. This is how it's going to be forever."
Right.
And I go, no, I'm pretty sure the end of the year and the holidays and travel around the holidays, coming back into, a brand new year, and we had a lot of work lined up to kick off at the beginning. There's definitely going to be a downturn from this level of craziness I'm sure there is. The only question for me really is how much of a downturn? What is your delta between things are absolutely bananas and this is my normal? And my hope is the delta is noticeably there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's big enough. I know there's going to be a drop off. The question is how much of a drop off?
I feel like we have, over the last couple of years, I feel like we have leaned more intentionally as a team into building the bigger deltas. We go real hard in the paint, just like in the clinic, right? The clinic always was cyclical. It was up and down and up and down. And you would have these intense busy periods, dental month at the beginning of the year and all of the, beginning of the year stuff. And then you would kind of have a lull, and then travel season would pick up and you'd have flea tick and heartworm season, and it would get crazy busy again in the summer. And then it would kind of drop off again when kids go back to school. I feel like it's the same for us. And I feel like we have really, as a team, leaned into building more buffer into that delta for ourselves. Like when we first started, it was like, okay, we got a 1 week break between the chaos of conference season and then, hitting the paint hard for our April conference. And now I feel like we generally have 3 or 4 weeks after each kind of cycle where things are less intense and where we all kind of can catch up. Everybody kind of can take some time off, and we're intentional about it. And it took a long time for us to get to that place and thinking about it intentionally so that we actually could build it in and be smart about it instead of just reactive, like, oh, we're just all so exhausted that we're going to take the next 2 weeks off because everybody's sick.
We have a different kind of pain now, because you're right. We used to just take it as it comes. I think that's how a lot of vet clinics run. There's a lot of vet clinics that are like, they show up and they get ready to see what comes in the door, and they fight the battle as hard as they can until the time runs out and they close the door. And like, that's 100% how we used to run. And now we have gotten much, much better at looking ahead and spacing things out and making intentional choices. The downside to this approach is where I am right now, where you're getting everything up and going and people are asking you about how are we going to do this in the coming months and what is the plan for this and who is going to be in charge of this. And in the past, I would have said, we'll figure it out when we get there. And now I'm like, no, let's figure it out now.
And
but you have
stressful.
to, it's totally stressful. And anyway, and it's just that type of, you're looking at the year as a whole, and that can be really overwhelming, as opposed to just saying, I got to get through tomorrow. It's just funny how both of those can be stressful. You really do pick your poison. Anyway. Yeah.
I'm excited for today's episode because we have a great mailbag question. And I think this is going to be a fun one. We have a doctor leader who is maybe some conflict averse in their own words, and they are struggling because they feel like the team is seeing only the weaknesses in each other and not the strengths. And so they started off by saying, how do I get the team to appreciate each other's strengths instead of seeing, the things that don't go very well or that they don't do very well as weaknesses? And then they gave us some great examples of behavior that is occurring in the clinic. So someone on the team is really great at staying on top of the follow-up list, but then they're the first one to complain that nobody else on the team does it. And in a very I'm the only one who ever does the follow-ups kind of way, right? Or another person on the team who's great at personalizing written communications with clients, complaining about another team member who, is just very brusque and short and to the point when they send messages to clients. So just like a lot of little nitpicky stuff. And when you add it all up and you look at it across the board, it's happening across the team as a whole. They said, so as you can hopefully see, we're in the unfortunate position of having a team that just seems to be complaining about one another and not working harder together. And they were like, how do I stop this merry-go-round? And so it came to us from doctors, sweep conflict under the rug and hope that it just goes away. And her Justice Frazzled hospital manager. And I love that they gave themselves nicknames, first of all. Made me happy. And second of all, I think that this is one that is going to hit home because I think all of us go through this at some point or another. For me, this was always, I could see this cycle in my team when we were tired and when everybody had been working really, really hard and when we hadn't been spending time working on the relationships in our team and we'd just been so focused on getting the job done. So I'm excited to dig into this one with you.
this really spoke to me because I think we all go through this. I think we all have these emotions that the team is having of, we see other people's shortcomings and they bother us, but we don't see their strengths and just hold on to it. You know what I mean? It spoke to me because I had this experience with my wife, like literally yesterday. So let me provide the context of, I love my wife. I'm so fortunate to be married to this woman. She is wonderful. However, and this happens sometimes, I remember yesterday afternoon looking around and recognizing that the expectation is that I would be preparing dinner again. And then also I would be cleaning up the kitchen after dinner was over. Like that's just kind of how we do things. And it's not that big a deal other than I think I was tired. I think I've been stress managing and juggling a lot of things. And I had that kind of mean feeling where I was like, man, here I am doing this. And then, of course, the kids need something. They're like, Dad, help me out with this thing. And I'm like, here I am. And I'm doing this thing. And where's my wife? Probably hanging out with her friends after work or something like that. And that, and then that night, she said to me, hey, I would like to feel a little bit more appreciated. And I was like, oh, it's on now. And I said, oh, yeah? Why is that? And she said, oh, because I got the plumber to come and fix this thing in our house. And I watched YouTube videos and replaced all the O-rings in the hot water heater today. And I went to the Apple store 5 times in the last 2 days to get our oldest daughter's cell phone fixed. And it has been maddening and infuriating. And everything she said, the wind came out of my rage sails. A little bit. I was like, it's me putting the flaming, raging sword of justice away. I was like, oh, yeah. And by the end, I was like, I love you to death. I was like, I thank you for all you do for our family. And it was genuine. But I was swinging the flaming, raging sword of justice around going, why am I the only one who does this? Only to really have a heart-to-heart talk with this woman that I love and go, oh, perhaps, Andy, you were a bit blind to all of the other things that were happening outside of your own little orbit. That's why when I read this, it totally spoke to me. Yeah. And again, that's really important to say. I like to think that I'm a good person. I try to be a good person. I'm engaging with my wife, who I mean it when I say I truly, deeply love this woman. And so if I can go through these feelings, I think that they're probably not, you know what I mean? Then the people probably having them are probably not monsters. Like they're probably also doing their best and maybe being a bit blind to what other people are doing. I don't know that this is a toxic, horrible thing. And so anyway, I want to start with that as headspace of, I think this is a human condition. I will say, however, there is a tipping point here, right? And it is, I hate to put it this way, but at some point, your team culture can become victimhood mentality. You know what I mean? It's like our team culture is we are always angry because we're getting taken advantage of. And and go, ooh, that's not an attractive look. It's definitely not an empowering look. It does not make people enjoy being at work. And they do it to themselves. Like they take this on of, I'm the only one who's doing these things. And I go, buddy, you're making yourself miserable. And so anyway, once it sort of goes systemic, we need to start to reset it. But that's where my head is. I think that there's some things that we can do here. This does not seem insurmountable. I think the internal challenge, the headspace challenge, I find a lot of things in life like this is there are some things that are just pure willpower. And the willpower challenge to our writer is, my friend, you are going to have to assume good intent and you are going to have to put a smile on your face while you talk to these people. And you're going to have to hold on to that because you cannot yell at them about feeling unappreciated and expect to get a good outcome. That's not going to happen. You're going to have to be the nice kindergarten teacher that makes everybody feel good and brings them back.
Yes. And I think that's totally true, right? As leaders, our job, this is something, I had this quote on a Post-it on my desk for a really, really long time because I had a mentor tell me, as leaders, our job isn't to fix all the complaints. Our job is to guide the team towards understanding and appreciating the bigger picture.
Nice.
And when I leaned into that headspace of just because someone brings me a complaint doesn't mean it's my job to do something about it.
Yes.
I became significantly more at peace with the world.
Yeah.
Because I spent a long time working myself into a tizzy, feeling like whenever someone brought me a problem or someone brought me a complaint about something that was happening in the clinic, that to be a good leader, I had to solve the problem. And that was a really backwards way of thinking. And I drove myself to the edge or beyond the edge of burnout thinking that way. And so I think stepping back and recognizing your point, which is we all tell ourselves stories at some point or another.
Yep.
And the action steps here have to do with how do we get the team to tell themselves different stories or consider different possibilities. And I think recognizing the fact that we all do it, and our job as leaders is to help figure out, is this a spiral because we're responding to one another right now and we're just not seeing each other? Or is this, to your point, has this become a culture shift for us? And has this become our culture where we just don't believe good things about each other and we assume negative intent? Because how we fix those two things are probably radically different. And I think based on what we got in this email, we're going to go with the fact that this is probably a decently functioning practice that actually likes each other. They're just in a space right now where everybody's feeling nitpicky at one another. Yeah. And figuring out how do we get them out of that? Because when we nitpick, it can feel really personal. And so I think that leads us straight to unproductive territory. And so how do we get the team out of that cycle? And it's a lot easier than I think that sometimes we think it is. Because like to your point, all it took was listening to Allie's perspective and the other side of it and realizing, oh yeah, she wasn't just sitting on the couch eating bonbons for the last 2 days. Like she was living life and doing all of this other stuff. And I love her and I can appreciate her. It just took that to be able to snap you out of it. And I think the team needs that kind of, that kind of course correction as well.
You made me laugh about that. We tell ourselves stories. It's funny. I remember one of my daughters was about 8 years old and she comes stomping down the stairs into the living room and she stops and she goes, "Why am I the only one who does anything around here?" And I remember thinking, buddy, like, you have no idea. You have no idea. You've never prepared a meal in your life.
Yes.
You have not washed your own clothes. Anyway, but it's funny. But yeah, I am optimistic that there's things that we can do about this. This is an annoyance to me. It's annoying, but it's not. I don't think it's catastrophic. Yeah, I think I'm ready with some action steps.
Okay, I have one other piece. Okay. So from a headspace perspective, one of the things that's really important, I think, to consider is that when we have complaints, they are often reflective of someone's unmet needs or unacknowledged efforts. They can also be misdirected frustration. A lot of the time we take them personal, and they're generally not meant as personal attacks. And so I think from a headspace perspective, recognizing that when the team is picking at one another like this, there are two pieces to this. One is helping them make the shift, which is what the writer asked for, to seeing each other's strengths and not the weaknesses. And the other is, as a leader, helping figure out where are the unmet needs of the team as individuals and as a whole. Like, where is there actually truth here? And maybe some challenge, because that is something that you can absolutely action step. And so for me, when I kind of thought about the action steps, if I step back and I think about, okay, if when you pick at someone, you're picking as a result of feeling unappreciative or like your, efforts were going, unacknowledged, it's a lot easier to get into a productive headspace and say, oh, wait a minute. Yeah. It's not that they don't care about me necessarily. Maybe they're just not seeing the work that I'm putting in here and the effort.
Yeah, sure. No, I think that's totally true.
Do you want to take a break and then dive into some of the action steps?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
All right. So action steps on this for me. This is one of my favorite things here is there are some problems in management that you just go right after and you just take them down. There are other problems where you go do something totally different and it makes a huge impact on your problem. And this is the latter. For me, we've got this team and they're each sort of complaining, I'm the only one who does this and I'm the only one who does that and no one's helped me does this and everybody's got a different thing. And he doesn't spend enough time with the clients and this other person's like, well, she's always running behind schedule and everybody's doing this. Okay, cool. whenever you have something like this and everybody sees the flaws of other people without seeing their own flaws, to me, that is often a problem of self-awareness. There's a self-awareness component to this, right? To some degree. I doubt that everyone is accurate saying, I'm the only one who's working here. I don't think that that's true.
Yeah.
And so one of the original components for me would be sort of self-awareness. If we haven't done any sort of DISC communication training, anything like that, that's a really great exercise. It's a workshop. We can get tests for everybody. It's not hard to get someone to come and lead it. You can probably lead it yourself if you buy the book, read, and then get the tests, and you can usually put your people through it. There's other trainers and stuff that can do this. They're not hard to find. Basically, this is a communication style training. I like DISC a lot. We use it in Uncharted. We use it in our team programs that we run here. It just quickly divides people up into 4 basic communication types. There's your D, which is your short and your direct person. Your C, which is your sort of detail-oriented, comprehensive person. Lots of details, wants to know what the data is, things like that. There's your I, which is your big friend person who wants to make sure they want to work with everybody else. Let's get everybody together. Let's all make sure that we're having fun. Yeah, let's work as a team. And then there's the S personality, which is sort of the go along to get along, steady. Let's keep things.
It's about everybody.
Yeah, make sure everybody's okay. And then also make sure that, we're not changing things too fast because that might make it hard on some people. And so, things like that. None is better than others. But once you just sort of see those categories and you look around the team, you go, oh, well, he's not being short with the clients because he's a jerk. That's just his sort of communication style. It's how he thinks and how he communicates. And again, it's not about your personality test or things like that. It's just kind of how do you appear to other people. And one of the reasons I really like DISC with a team is, one, you get to kind of see what other people are and go, oh, I wondered why, it's not that this person is talkative. They're a C communicator style, and they really think that details are important, and they want to make sure I have all the information before I go into the room. And so you go, okay, that's it. The other thing is you yourself get typed, which means I go, oh, I'm a D? This is how people perceive me? Really? This is what others commonly think about my communication style? And that's sort of a self-awareness piece of it. Oh, okay. And so I think that for me, number one, if you haven't done DISC communication typing or things like that, this could be a really good way to go. I'll stop with that. I'm going to say this is an optional first step. I mean, it's a good to do, I think. I'll lay out the other steps and you can decide if you want to add this on, but this is one at the very beginning. Either do it or don't do it, but it's a good thing to start with if you're going to do it.
Yeah, that was on my list as well. I think the thing that I would put ahead of that to me starts the action steps for tackling the problem. I think the thing I would add before that as a pre-step, when my team got like this and everybody was in a spiral, you got to break the cycle. And so whether that, figure out what that looks like for your team, whether it's we're going to turn the phones over and I'm taking you all across the street for lunch and we're going to go, we're just going to go do something completely different and fun, or, whatever is something to get out of both the environment and that like cloud of negativity. And that has nothing to do with work. It's not about, talking about work. It's just about let's get out. It doesn't have to be a big thing that takes weeks to organize. It's what can we do here in the moment to have a little bit of fun and break that cycle of negativity.
Yeah. Just to see each other as people. I completely agree. Just some basic team building, I think, is good. And the point when I say team building is not, we're getting more efficient. It's mostly I'm getting to know these other people. So I know that the person who's slow to do callbacks is not a terrible person.
Right.
This might be an annoyance, but it's not who they are. And I like this person and I feel like I understand them. Hopefully I feel like I can talk to them or I can ask them maybe a little bit more for what I need. Maybe we can just start to have some conversations that make it easier for them to show me appreciation without even really trying, just because we talk and they say, oh, thank you for doing this. There's just a lot of benefit of that whole, what can we do just to get them to kind of know each other better? And I do think get them to know each other better outside the cycle. A lot of this is funny. It's, everybody's complaining about everybody. It really breaks down very similarly to how we take care of the front versus the back problem. When the front and the back aren't getting along, a big part of that is they don't know each other or they don't understand what the other person is up against. And so a lot of that sort of just some good old fashioned stirring and mixing to kind of get people talking together, being together, doing together. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think the other two pieces that I would offer on top of DISC, beyond just breaking the ice and breaking the cycle of everybody's picking at each other. Strength find if you're a process person and you need a framework, Strength Finders, Clifton Strength Finders is great. It gives you a easy framework. There's a book just like with DISC. You can run the assessment, have all your people do it. It looks at what are the things that an individual is really good at and strong in, and encourages you as a leader to lean into their strengths more than you spend effort trying to overcome the challenges, because it's way easier to put someone who's strong in an area of someone else's weakness than to try and get that person to overcome the weakness themselves.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. But the other thing that is super easy, and I reach for this on the regular with my team, is let's just do a simple activity where we think about what are the things that we appreciate in each other.
That's what
and
I was
so
yeah.
if we go and do a team lunch or we have a team meeting, you can give everybody a piece of paper, have them write their name on it and decorate it however they want. And then they pass it to the person on the left. And everybody writes one thing that they appreciate or admire or want that person to know about themselves. And let me tell you, someone cries every single time we do it, because the things that other people reflect back to us that they see in us that we don't see in ourselves is huge. And I have had on a personal level, I've had some of the most touching things come from people who, because I know everybody's handwriting, I thought I had the worst relationships with on the team. And some of the most insightful comments have come from those people over the years. And so just getting your team to think, if you can't think of one positive thing for everybody on your team, there's bigger problems at play here than everybody just nitpicking at one another.
You're so spot on. My go-tos for this, I had slightly different thoughts, but there's a couple you can pick from. To me, I think you want to do something with the team, as you said, to focus on what do people do well and what do we appreciate about each other? And this is one where I said at the very beginning, I said, there's some things you tackle head on. There's some things where you do something different. To me, this is the doing something different. I'm not talking about them sniping at each other or nitpicking each other. I'm just coming together and saying, guys, I want to focus up. We're going to have a meeting today. I want to talk about our team values. And, what I want to do is say, what do you appreciate about the people that you work with? And I want you to get specific. So let's start at a high level and just say, just the team in general, what do you appreciate about our team? And then the only reason I'm doing that is to get people talking in a positive way. So then we can come back around and say, let's shift down to the individual level. I want you guys to start to tell me what you appreciate about other people on this team specifically. Tell me who it is. Tell me what you appreciate about them. We'll do that. If they need some help or some prompting, I like the team values. Kind of say, hey guys, these are our team values. I want you to tell me about when you've seen someone on our team living our values. What does that look like? And really try to push them to give examples of, I saw Dr. Smith doing this, and to me, that exemplifies hard work. And so I'm trying to push them to do those sorts of things. So anyway, the other exercise is the old, let's talk about what we like about our team and what's great about our team. And just start to say, I want to make a brag list. I want a brag board. What do you guys appreciate about how we do? What makes you proud? Things like that. How do we live our purpose here? And a lot of it is just to get them out of that headspace of this is bad, no one helps, and over to, oh yeah, okay, we do these good things. And I think if we can start to build them in a way of looking at the people around them just in a positive way, then we can start to individually correct those sort of sniping behaviors. But that's really what this is continue to emphasize the positive, and then we're going to have some side conversations, especially ideally stuff around sort of self-awareness with the negative conversations. And this is going to take a little time. It's not going to be a everybody stops doing it and moves forward sort of thing usually, but that's sort of the approach that I would tend to take. Yeah,
I love that. And I love making it visual, I think, because this is not a one and done, right? And so if we can recognize what the team is good at, what we appreciate about each other, and then we can find a way to make it visual and put it up somewhere so that they can see it, that helps tremendously. Same for those, like DISC results and Strength Finders and stuff, because we get so bogged down in the chaos. Our jobs are hard and we get so bogged down in the day-to-day of what is happening that it's really easy to work ourselves into a funk when the day is busy. But getting them to try and have the self-awareness to break the cycle on their own is the number one thing that you can do for them as a leader. And so the other thing that I think that I would add on to that is there is a really simple and easy tool that you can use. It's one of the frameworks that I use for myself. And the first thing is if I am feeling particularly negative about something, or something comes out of my mouth that is pretty mean or snarky, because I'm generally not that person, I try and force myself to ask myself the question, what story could I be telling myself here? What else could be going on? What story am I making up in my head? And then also asking if the answer is, no, this person is genuinely acting this way, or they generally are doing this thing, then I ask myself, what else could be going on for that person? Because the goal is to try and teach them to have empathy for one another and recognize that we all have bad days. And there are going to be days where, Susan doesn't write a perfect chart. And, Sarah might find that super obnoxious and annoying. And if she has the ability to look at her and say, well, maybe she's having a bad day, it becomes easier to work together when we can assume the good intent in one another. And so I think teaching the team how to ask themselves questions like that, it's another one of you can do something else to get them to focus on this.
Yeah.
If this was happening on a regular basis in my team, I would probably focus some team meetings over time, recognizing that this is a long-term problem. Focus some team meetings on how do we have better communication?
Yeah.
And teaching them some actual tools for self-awareness, for empathy, and really focusing on that. That's the long play, right? Yeah. That's not going to solve your problem about everybody nitpicking each other right now. But if you can get them to the place where they can start to just ask each other those questions, it gets to the place where you got last night with Allie way faster, where you can say, oh, maybe she was doing other things. Maybe she's not a horrible person, even though I called her that in my head.
Not the monster.
She's not the monster that I made her out to in my head. Right? So I think it's getting them to ask themselves that. And then I think for me, the last thing from an action step perspective is that it has nothing to do with the feelings and has everything to do with the actual work itself. And that is, this is a great opportunity to lean in and ask the team some questions about what is maybe not going so well in their jobs, right? So to your point, if we get them to think, what are the things that they appreciate about each other? What are the things that is going really well as a team? The flip side to that is, where are we struggling right now? Like, where might some of those roadblocks be? Because it sounds to me like from this list of examples, and there were some really good ones, maybe there are some areas where people's jobs overlap and there isn't clarity, or there's friction in the process and the protocol. And identifying those things and working specifically to clear up those areas of friction, those overlaps, we could do a world of good to eliminate these problems if we can provide them with the clarity that they need as a team. And so spending some time doing some brainstorming in that regard and asking them like, hey, I've been hearing a lot about how we have some differences in style in how we communicate with clients. And so what I would love to do is, spend a team meeting and talk about let's take some examples and let's talk about how would you approach it, and look at what are the things that we're doing the same and where might we be doing it differently. Do we need to come together more where we're doing it differently, or are they just acceptable style differences? Because the reality is, who wants a practice made up of robots? I don't. I want everybody on my team to have their own individual style, and communication is really important to that. And as long as everybody is communicating with clients in a professional way, I don't care that they, one team member uses different verbiage than the other, right? And so having the opportunity to talk through those things as a team is, I think, an unintended but very beneficial side effect of this problem if you're trying to look on the bright side.
I agree with that. So to summarize and see if we're in the same place here, I think ideally this opens up with some just sort of team time, team building time. I really like DISC if you are in a place where you could set it up or you could do it. It's a really great investment in your team of just getting them to know each other and communicate better in general. So some DISC communication styles, just team building in general would be a great opening. And then for me, I'm going to basically start doing the old Uncharted appreciation program. That's really when we start talking about what do we appreciate about our job? What are we proud of in our company, in our clinic? Let's figure out a program where we can celebrate each other and appreciate each other, so that it's not just me as the medical leader having to walk around and pat everyone on the back every day, because I don't have time for that. I have to do my own thing. And so I'll do it when I can, but really I need you guys to pat each other on the back, then everybody gets pats on the back. And so let's figure out how to get some sort of an appreciation program going, something like that, so we celebrate each other. And so while we've got this good, positive, let's appreciate each other, let's understand and know each other, that whole system is going over there. Then I'm going to start picking apart any remaining negative behaviors, right? And so really the way I think about this, and again, I said at the very beginning, I think it helps me a lot to remember that people are good. And we all tell ourselves stories sometimes, and we all get down and we all feel unappreciated. We just do. I think that that's really important. And I said also, this is going to be a willpower exercise. If you're going to have to smile and you're going to have to be nice. And so then sort of starting to change those behaviors for me, what that looks like is we need to listen to people when they have a problem, but I'm going to largely treat them kind of like I treat my kids when my kids come and complain about their siblings. And again, I'm going to be condescending. It's just, to me in my life, that has been the best picture of me having someone come to me and I think, I care about you and I want you to be happy. And also, I need you to get along. I need you to get along with these other people. And so to me, I make these analogies to my children a lot because I care deeply about my children. And I like to care deeply about the people who come, to me and say, hey, boss, I'm struggling with this, or this person's, getting irritating. But I start to work with them. And it's a mixture of two things. Number one is, what is a legitimate concern or complaint here? And then how do we start to build workflows or re-engage the team around this issue? And maybe half of the things they come to will be something where you go, yeah, we don't have a lot of clarity, or there should be a better system than somebody catch this ball before it drops. And we all know that Michelle cares the most and she's going to catch it.
So it's her job.
So it's her job. Like that. Like I see so many things they are de facto. That's how they are. And so I see a lot of this. Okay, we need to fix that. And then the other part of that is the personal coaching. When someone comes and they say, well, this person does this thing and it's just frustrating. And I would say, okay, well, what things does that person do that are really positive? And then they immediately start feeling bad because they're like, well, I don't know. Like, so really?
They don't do anything positive?
They don't do anything positive?
They're a horrible employee?
Yeah. They're a bad person, and they just happen to work at a vet clinic, and that's what they do. And so anyway, I don't try to do it in a condescending way, but it really is like, okay, I'm hearing that there's this frustration. What does this person do that is beneficial? What does this person do that you do like? And the last part of the coaching is also sort of say, okay, if I don't feel like I should wade into this, and I do want to be very clear here, as the leader/manager, I do not want to be the problem solver every time someone comes and complains about somebody else, because then I'm going to spend my life chasing down people to slap hands. And all I'm going to do is train my employees that if you want to make somebody's day bad, just go get Andy and then he'll come and make them feel bad. Like that's awful. So it's going to be a lot of those conversations of, what have you said to that person? How was this conversation shaped up so far? Things like that.
Yeah. I think the last thing for our Dr. Sweep conflict under the rug and hope that it goes away is recognizing that the team dynamics is a continuous effort, right? This is not a one and done. So you might fix this current spiral with the team and you might get rid of this current cloud. And if you don't continue to nourish it and invest in the relationships that you have on your team, and you don't make it a piece of working on the practice to get the team to see one another, to work on their relationships, to work on their communication, it's just going to come right back. It's the boomerang that never goes away. And so investing in the team and also in yourself, if you are someone who is conflict averse and you haven't seen our conflict management essentials certificate yet, that just came out at the beginning of this year with our friends at NAVC and Vetfolio. And you can find the information for it on our website. You can head over to unchartedvet.com/certificates with an S, so certificate plural, and you can find the info on both of those. And if you're an Uncharted member, there's no better year than this year because you get both of our certificates included in your membership. And so if you've been on the fence and thinking about it, you should definitely check that out because it works out to be the same price as buying them both separately. So that is an investment you can make in yourself. And we set up this course to really be the foundation and the essentials. So if you have a team that is struggling to handle conflict on their own, it's a great place to start with putting the team through some conflict training on how to handle it. Not like conflict mediation, but how to approach conflict on a one-to-one level, because this is going to be something that you're going to have to come back to, in some other context or another, because it is cyclical. It happens. The team gets in a funk. And if you don't have the tools in your toolbox to deal with the conflict, you're going to just find yourself sending us another letter, which we don't mind because it gives us great podcast content. But also, we would rather help everybody get some tools to solve the challenges for themselves. That's all I got. How about you, Andy?
Fantastic. No, I think you're spot on. I think that's great, guys. I hope this has definitely been helpful. Like I said, this is one of those things where you get into it and it just feels like a quagmire. You know what I mean? Like you're just in this swamp and everybody's kind of doing this behavior. And this is not an overnight fix, but I really lean into the idea that your people are good. Start to get them to focus on appreciation, and it's just time. I mean, I think this is cyclical. Yep. I think all practices need a focus on appreciation every now and then, and so now it's time to do that, and let's get them appreciating each other, and then let's start coaching and fixing workflow issues in the background. And if you put those things together, it's going to take 6 to 10 weeks, but you can make real progress in this, and by the end of the year, it's going to look like a distant memory.
Yeah, I love that. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
And that's a wrap on another episode of the Uncharted Podcast. Thanks for joining us and spending your week with us. If you enjoyed this week's episode, head over to wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. It's the best way to let us know that you love listening. We'll see you next time.